Welcome to my channel. If you don't already know, my name is Kevin, and here at my channel we make weekly tips, tricks, and tutorials based on front-end stuff, HTML, CSS, and little doses of JavaScript every now and then. So I was going through my Twitter feed today, and I came across a post, and I've put the post here. You can see it sort of scrolling by for these little 3D flip card things, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then one of them really caught my eye, and then another one, and there's this really cool effect. I've flipped stuff with CSS before, but I'd never flipped stuff like this. And at first I'm like, maybe there's some JavaScript in there. Clicked, checked out the code. No JavaScript. And I've known about 3D transforms and perspective. I've played around with it a little bit. This was so easy to do and a lot of fun. So in this video we're going to be exploring, here we go, I'm going to put it right there, you can see it, this nice sort of flippy thing, how it works and everything about it, and it's really not too complicated to do. So we're going to be doing the whole thing from scratch, how I designed it, but yeah, just a lot of fun. So let's go and check that out right now.
Alrighty, so as usual, here we are in CodePen. So if you'd like to follow along, you can. The link is in the description below, and there's this really long URL. You could also type into your browser, but the link for that will be in the description below because that'd be a lot easier for you. So what are we going to be doing? Well, we're making our cool card flip thing. So the first thing let's do now is just make my card, and I won't even worry about the CSS. Let's come up here. I'm just going to do a card. So for my card, I want to have some content. And the way I'm setting this up, I think, is kind of important. So we're going to have the content of my card and close div. So a little bit of extra markup on here. Actually, let's just do card. Whoops. Content like that. I use a bit of the BEM naming convention. Yeah, the reason I'm doing this is when we hover over something, I want this to be what's flipping and not the card itself, or then the hover might glitch out and do something really weird when it's like halfway through the flip. So the card's always going to stay still, and it's the content inside that's actually going to be what's flipping around. That is a little important step along the way. And then in here we need two parts. We're going to need a div class of card front. And we'll close that off. And then we're going to need a div class of card back. Close div. Because this is an example, I don't really need to be using BEM here. I could just be having like content front, back, and all of that. But I'm assuming, I'm pretending this would be part of a bigger architecture, and this naming would help us out in the long run. So that's why I'm doing it like this. In the front here, I'm just going to do a H3. And again, I'm going to do this a little bit as if it was part of a bigger thing. So I'm going to have a class on here of card title. And we're going to do a little like fair themed here, I think. So we're going to put in the fair. And over here, let's come in with a paragraph of class no card subtitle. And time for some fun. There we go, close paragraph. The order here is going to be important. We're going to actually flip that over after, but I'll talk more about that once we get there. And then in here, I'm just going to put a paragraph. We'll give this a class too. Class equals card body. So this is like the main text of my card. I don't really know what I'd do here, so I'm just going to go off screen. I have a really simple just something we'll be pasting in there. This would be some longer text that gives a description of things that would go inside it, I guess. So nothing, I'm not sure what I want to be putting in there, but I just want something that's like a medium length text that could be in there. Great. So now we actually need to style it up. So as far as the markup goes, this is it. And as I mentioned before, it's important to have this card content inside of the card. It is a little bit of extra markup that we wouldn't necessarily need, but it's going to be sort of necessary to make this flip thing work. And I'll show you exactly why once we start doing the CSS on this. Then this is going to be the front and the back of my card. So I think that part is pretty straightforward. All right, so just a quick word here. You might notice that I'm in Chrome now instead of Firefox, and it's not because I want to be, it's just because I'm having some issues with Firefox nightly on my computer. It just doesn't want to open all of a sudden. I tried reinstalling and doing a few things, but I'll get that sorted out when I'm not trying to record a video. Yeah, we're going to keep this one going. So all the HTML here is all done, and we're going to be moving on to the CSS. You'll see here just a very basic reset, getting rid of all my margins, resetting my box sizing under the border box, which makes it a little bit easier. And this I would never normally have on a site. It just centers the content for me on the middle of the screen. So for CodePens like this, it is perfect. So the very first thing I'm going to do is let's just do some really basic styling here. So I'm just going to give my card a width of like 400 pixels. And actually, I think that's about it for the moment. Let's come on to my card content next. So card content. And I think for now, I'm just going to do a text align center on this. We're going to be coming back and jumping around sort of in all the different pieces here. So we can see how this is actually going to work. And actually one more thing, I'm going to do a position relative. Just so I can come down here and do a my card front and my card back. And for these ones, let's give them a position solute, so I can get them to overlap each other, because they do need to be on top of each other for this effect to work. So we'll do a top of 0, bottom 0, left 0, right 0. And as we can clearly see, they're sort of stacked on top of each other like that. All right, so I think for now, to show you sort of, let's start diving into some of the cool things we're going to be looking at. And the very first thing we're going to have to look at is called Preserve 3D, and it comes out, actually it's from our transform style. I wrote an article on this past weekend, so if you head on over to my website, you can read a little bit about that there. But to dive into what it's doing, let's start by giving this a hover effect. So when we hover on top of my card, so let's just do dot card hover, I want the card content to rotate. And the reason that I'm doing this like this, and this is the whole reason that we have this card content inside my card, is because I'll show you why actually. So let's just say transform. I'm just going to do a rotate like this for a second, and we'll just do 90 degrees. So you can see when I hover on top, it's rotating like that, and it's going kind of crazy. So when I hover on top of my card, so let's just give this a background for a second. Background of pink. So we can see my card. Oh, and of course, everything right now is position absolute in here, so the background's not going to work. So my card content, let's just give this some padding for now, 5M. We're going to want some padding on there anyway. So now we can see our card. And you can see that when I hover on top of my card, I want the card content to rotate. The reason I don't want the whole card itself to rotate is because this can happen. So this is, as soon as I'm going on top, it's rotating, but then I'm not on top of it anymore, and it goes all glitchy. So I want the inner section of my thing to rotate, but I don't want the actual card to rotate. So that's the idea with this. Now rotate will do that, and let's also come on to my card content. Do this a transition, transform, and I guess this should actually be just for readability's sake. I usually like having my hovers after. Transform, and we'll say like 3 seconds for now, so it's nice and long so we can see it. So now we can see it rotating there. Now I don't want to use a normal rotate. What I want to do is want it to rotate on the y-axis. So when I hover now, look at that. See how it's getting flatter, 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 and now it's coming back like that? So that's kind of fun, right? So we can see it's rotating in a way that's kind of interesting. But I also don't want the background to be on my here. For now, let's put our background on here. So we can see that it looks like the whole thing is sort of flipping like that. So that's the start of what we want to be doing. And maybe instead of what we don't want here is 90 degrees, we want to do half a turn, right? So it'd be 180 degrees, or if you don't know about it, you have the 0.5 turn, which I only learned about recently thanks to Wes Boss. So you can do a turn unit, so it's half a turn. So that's going to give it a complete flip. So we're going onto the back of our card. So I think that, you can already see how all of this is coming together. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my card front. Let's do card front. Give this a background of red. And let's just give it a top. Actually, I can leave it like this. For the little demo that I want to do right now, this is going to work fine. I'm going to give this a transform, rotate, Y, 90, or let's do a 0.25 turn. And it disappears. And it disappeared. Whoa, we got some glitchy stuff going on. Oh, there we go. Okay, it's more what I was expecting to happen. So it's disappearing because just like this, if I do a 0.25 turn, the whole thing is, when I rotate like that, it goes and then it stops when it's facing us pretty much, and it's completely flat, so we don't actually see it. So if my card front is rotate at the same thing like that, what's happening is we just don't see it. And it's always going to do this relative to the parent, and it stays flat on the parent. So if I actually change this to like a 0.15 turn, you can see it's there and it's sort of just like squished on the parent, which isn't really what we want. We want this to act independently from its parent. So to be able to do that on the parent element, what we want to do is come in with a transform style. Now the only options for transform style are flat, which is exactly what's happening now. The children are flat on the parent, or preserve 3D. And now you're going to see this cool thing when I hover. This is now independent in the 3D space. See what's going on there? That's kind of cool, right? So as the pink one is rotating away, my red one is rotating back in. So right away you could do some cool stuff with this to start with. It's not the effect that I'm after today, but it's just to give you, I think this illustrates really well what's actually happening with the Preserve 3D. In this case though, instead of using the Preserve 3D, and I'm going to take my background off of this as well, what I want to do, and I think just to keep the text off the top here, let's add some padding on here, padding of like 2M, and let's just do a, yeah, so we have the padding on there just so it's not sort of stuck like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, and should I do this on the card front? I think I'm going to do this on the individual items inside right away. So what this Preserve 3D is going to open up is, it's going to open up this cool possibility of having, so let's do my card title, and I'm going to do a transform translate Z. So you probably know translate X. If I do this and like 100 pixels, it's going to move over by 100 pixels. Or let's just make it like, I don't know, 200. Yeah, we can see the title is sticking out the side now. I can do it on the y-axis, so that's moving it up and down, so it's going to move it down 200 pixels. And then there's the z-axis, and let's also make this bigger. Font size of, and I know it's all muddled and on top of each other right now, but we'll get there in a second. Font size of like 3 rem. There we go. That looks a little better. And we can see it a bit clearer, which is good. So what the translate Z is doing is it's actually pulling it towards us. So it's on the Z axis, which is facing us and away from us. So it's pulling it towards us. Now, one thing is normally in the real world, if something gets closer to you, it gets bigger. That's not going to happen with this, but you can see that. So when I do this, nothing really changes, except now when it rotates, check that out. Isn't that cool? It's like hovering away from everything, and it's hovering 200 pixels away from everything. And the reason this is working is because of our little Preserve 3D that's going on over here. Now, this is also going to break probably at one point, but for now, we can see that. Oh, I just find that so cool. So now, instead of doing a half turn like this, let's just bring this, or a quarter turn, I should say, we'll bring it to a half turn. So it's going to flip all the way right over like that. So we can see the whole thing just swinging around. Now, there's obviously another issue with this, and even to make it more obvious that there's an issue with this, or what I eventually want to do is when it flips, you can see all this text is backwards now. The stuff from the back is backwards, right? So let's go to my card back, and what I'm going to do is a transform, rotate Y, 0.5 turn on here. So it's backwards, but now when I hover, it's becoming the right way around, and this one is backwards now. So let's just give this a background of like light blue for now. Now, so you can see it's still working, but because we have another issue now is that this is, if we look here in the order, the back is coming second, so it's going on top of this, so it's actually covering it. And the only time we see it's when it's, anyway, causing a whole bunch of issues. So we're going to add on my card front and my card back something called backface-visibility. Visibility. And it's going to be hidden. And this pretty much comes into play when things are backwards. So you can see that it's actually disappeared now. So it's hiding something if the back of that thing is facing me. So my card back is now hidden. And when this flips over to the other side, the other one is now hidden. So if I turn that off, just to go back over it, actually, let's even turn off this light blue background. So now I can see both texts the whole time. So the whole time this is happening, I see all my text and everything's really awkward. And as soon as I turn that on, I now only see the front. And now that it's going to swing around and I'm going to see the back there. The one thing, because this is the fair is on, is sort of screwing everything up there because it's in the 3D space. So you can see actually the text "time for some fun" is disappearing. So with that, I am going to keep a background on here, and if you need it to be, this could be white. And I think that would solve, yeah, there we go. So we can see that it's hiding behind that. So I'm going to keep that on the light blue for the moment. And just, let's add this little translate Z here also. So I have my subtitle and I have my card body. So I'm actually going to change this. Let's go away from 200 pixels and say it's like 5 rem. Yeah, we'll do 5 rem for now. And then I can have my card body coming in at a translate Z of like 2 rem. And I made a typo here somewhere, transform body, and I also have my dot card subtitle. And let's just copy this one. And so now we can, if we have all of that set up like that, so subtitle with 2 underscores there, and now we can see that it's working on one side but not the other. And just to make this a little bit more confusing, what we're going to do is on my card front, let's give this a background color too, background of light green. Actually, that's still working there for the front. I'm a little bit surprised the front section's working, because I thought I was going to have this problem everywhere. But what we're going to do is just take this transform style preserve 3D and also put it on the card front and the card back here. So it's not only being used on the card content. And now we should see, there we go. Everything is sort of coming off on its own level. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Let's say this is 6. 4 and 3 or something like that, just so everything is sort of getting its own distance away from what it's on. So I think that's just a really cool and fun little effect we have going on there. So really, really neat, and I really like that. So what I'm going to do now is actually just speed all of this up, add some, we're going to hit some speed coding for a second here. I'm going to fix this up and make it look a little bit nicer, add some more elements to this whole type of thing, just to make it look a little bit fancier. And I'll sort of go over the things. I'm going to use some CSS variables, I think, to set this up and make the whole thing just look, a bit sharper, and go through. I'll use a pseudo element in there too. And yeah, I'll see you on the other side of that. Enjoy. All right, and there we have it. I hope you like what it looks like. I think it looks pretty good in the end. Maybe a lighter font would work better here, but overall I think it's pretty good. So basically what I did here is I created 3 levels in as CSS variables, and it just makes it easier to sort of play with them. And if I ever, say I find they're too drastic, I don't have to worry about where they are in the rest of my document. I can quickly just come here and change those for my levels. As far as the other stuff I've done here, I've done a background blend mode for my image here. So I brought my image in, and then I was playing a lot with the color that I was using here to try and get that. I have my pseudo element as like a border there, so I thought that was a fun thing. You might have seen that I was doing some inspect elements and stuff, and if you have to do it, make sure you don't have any typos. I had this as display, and absolute wasn't even spelled right, so that was a little embarrassing, but we get there in the end. Maybe I could put a border on this one too, or something just to fancy it up. But overall, I'm pretty happy with that. I think it looks pretty good. Another thing, actually, just before I go, you'll notice that I changed the order of these, not by changing the order here, but by changing the order, where was it? Here. So because I'm using grid, and if you're using Flexbox, this would have worked fine with Flexbox. By putting the order 2, it's bringing it down below the subtitle, even though in the markup they're this way around. And for accessibility, this can be pretty good because at least we're still getting the title before we're getting to paragraph text or something else. But visually speaking, I thought it was just a little bit more fun doing it this way. That it's hard for me to highlight because it keeps rotating. But the time for some fun, it's really not that important. It's a little something extra that it's just there, but the name of it's really what's important. So visually, this still is clearly the hierarchy king here. It's what people are going to be reading, but for accessibility's sake, it's using the order to change it up is a good idea instead of changing the order in the markup, because this just makes a lot more sense. And there we have it. Yeah, I hope you really like that, and let me know if you like the little speed coding thing here at the end that went over the design that I did, because if you like it, I'll include things like that a bit more often once the concept is done, just the making it look good. Of course, this finished pen will be accessible to you. The link for it is down in the description below if you want to check out a bit more of the designy stuff that I did here along the way.
Wasn't that just cool? I love that so much. I think it's a really cool effect, and I think you could use it in more interesting ways than this. You're not always going to have things you're going to want to flip over, but it's sort of, I have some ideas now on different ways I think this could be used in fun ways. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth exploring and playing around with. I hope you liked it too. If you did, leave a comment down below to let me know, or hit that thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them down below as well. A really big thank you to my patrons. If you don't know about Patreon, it's a place you can go to help support creators who make content that you appreciate. And so my patrons that I currently have, just massive thank you for helping support me in what I'm doing here. I really, really appreciate it, and it helps make these videos possible. So thanks a lot for that. And of course, until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.